Hello and welcome to today's GLOW session. This session is part of our Global Learning Opportunities Week here at UCLA Study Abroad, and I'll explain what that means in a second. So which session are you attending today? This is the Let's Talk Finances session, Understanding Study Abroad Fees as an Out-of-State Student. So just some information about this webinar. There will be a Q&A session throughout the presentation. So please use the Q&A function or the chat to submit your questions as you have them, and we will answer them in the order received. And you're welcome to enter them throughout because we pre-recorded this, but we are here live. So please, as those questions come up, put them in the Q&A function and we will reply to them. For that reason, please type each question only once. And just know that if something happens to your internet or you need to go to class, this webinar will be recorded and available with captioning within a day or two in the on-demand section of our IEO GLOW page. Okay, that's the URL, ieo.ucla.edu/glow. However, if you can attend live, we encourage it because we are here to answer your questions now. All right, so welcome again. Who am I? I am Kelly Zuniga, and I am the Associate Director here of Advising and Outreach at the UCLA Study Abroad Office. We are also known as a UCLA International Education Office. We are your one-stop shop for everything study abroad on campus. All right, so let's talk finances. What are we going to go through today? So on today's agenda, we are going to give an overview of non-resident supplemental tuition. So what is it? When do students get charged? And then we're going to talk about how it applies to study abroad. So we're going to go over the applicable terms and the IO programs that charge this supplemental tuition for non-residents. Then we will get into an explanation of why fees are still assessed on study abroad, why it happens. There's always a reason. And then we're going to give you a breakdown showing you examples of what this means for you and some strategies to save you some big bucks. Okay. And finally, we want to just remind you that there are funding sources available for you. You don't have to pay everything out of pocket. Again, I want to remind you that as you have questions, please enter them in the chat because we are going to be answering them. Use the Q&A function or the chat and we will get back to you throughout. Don't hesitate. Don't hold back, but only once. All right. So let's give an overview of non-resident supplemental tuition. What is it? So this is something that is charged to non-California residents. And that is because California residents contribute to state education funding, including the continued existence of UCLA through taxes. Okay, so California residents are taxpayers and they are funding the educational system. Anyone who's not from California isn't paying into this every day, right? You are contributing to, if you are an out-of-state student, you are contributing to your state, your family is contributing to your state through your taxes. So therefore, the University of California charges supplemental tuition to non-residents or non-resident supplemental tuition, and it is assessed to contribute to the state's educational funding. So currently, the full academic year is costing out-of-state students an additional $32,574. Now, this is for the 23-24 academic school year, and this is subject to change depending on when you're watching this. So you can always view the most up-to-date information on the UCLA tuition webpage on the official UCLA site. So what does that look like per quarter? So I gave you the total, right? The total is 32,574. And this is assessed during the year, which means it is split up by quarter. UCLA runs on a quarter system. So fall, winter, spring, each quarter you are paying as a non-resident, as a non-California resident prior to coming here, right? You are a California resident now, but for tuition purposes, if you are an out-of-state student, you are paying this, right? So each quarter it's $10,858, right? Totaling $32,574. Now you will notice it is assessed for the academic year, which means that during the summer, non-resident students, out-of-state students, do not pay any supplemental tuition. Okay, this is very important. This is going to be a key factor in this presentation, if you're trying to save money, especially. So when is this non-resident supplemental tuition applied? When you are studying abroad and during IO programs. There are some caveats, there are some nuances, okay? Let's get into it. So, as I said, in the summer, non-resident supplemental tuition is not assessed because it's only assessed during the academic year. That is the same for the summer programs. So UCLA Travel Study, UCLA Global Internship, those are summer-only programs. They're not offered during the year. So the non-resident supplemental tuition is not applied. So that's great news. You don't ever have to worry about additional tuition for those. Now, UCEAP happens year-round. So there are summer programs and there are programs that happen during the year, fall, winter, or spring. So during the summer, same thing as the other summer study abroad programs. The supplemental non-resident tuition is not applied. So that's good news. It is applicable during the year. That is not any different from being at UCLA, but just keep that in mind, okay? And we're going to talk about that a little more. That is actually going to be the focus of the next portion. So just for emphasis, no non-resident supplemental tuition for any IO summer study abroad programs. So before I get into that, looking at this supplemental tuition during the year, I get asked the question, we get asked the question, why is non-resident supplemental tuition still assessed on study abroad? Because UCLA students, you're studying abroad, you're not a resident in that country. Well, there is an explanation, I promise. And that is because when you are participating on a UC EAP program, you remain an enrolled UC student. So you are still responsible for state education funding contributions, and thus you are still assessed these fees. Okay, so you are still enrolled at UCLA, so you are still expected to pay these fees. Now, how these fees are assessed depends on your study abroad program term. So let's talk about that. It gets quite interesting. So let's look at a breakdown and look at different terms and combinations to see how these non-resident supplemental tuition on study abroad will be applied. All right, so one thing about UCEAP that's different from UCLA is that there are semester options. So at UCLA, we have fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter. Through UCEAP, they have some quarter programs, but actually the majority of UCEAP programs that happen during the year are semester-based, okay? They're semester-long programs. So let's compare what it looks like with UCEAP per quarter, and then we'll compare, which is a minority, and then semester, which is a majority of programs. Now, during the academic year, the total non-resident supplemental tuition for a year, let's say you were to spend a year abroad, is $29,754 on top of other program fees, right? We're talking about the non-resident supplemental tuition. Supplemental is key here. Now you will notice that per quarter, it's less than a UCLA quarter non-resident supplemental tuition, okay? So that's why I want to explain why this is 9,918 versus the 10,000 and plus that you saw previously, okay? This is the current non-resident supplemental tuition per quarter, right, for the left-hand side here, for UCEAP programs, okay? And that is because when you study abroad, you are responsible for UCEAP fees, okay? You are not paying UCLA fees and tuition. So instead of that, you are paying for UCEAP program fees and tuition. Okay, so it's replacing it. You're not expected to pay both. Your UCEAP program tuition and fees replace your UCLA tuition and fees. And through UCEAP, the out-of-state supplemental tuition per quarter is different. Per year, it's different. It's a little less. Again, this is for the 23-24 academic school year, and it is subject to change. So always make sure you are checking the websites and the cost section of the program that you're interested in for UCAP programs. Now, you will see here, because the annual non-resident supplemental tuition is split by semester when it's a semester program in question, it looks different, right? And so in that case, a fall semester will be $14,877, and same for spring, $14,877. So that is how much non-resident out-of-state students will pay of supplemental tuition. Okay, so that plus the program fees and tuition. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, so if you're watching this live, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat and we can clarify. So to summarize, right, some of these differences from the last slide is that the supplemental tuition will change depending on whether you're in a quarter program or a semester program. Okay, those fees look different. And you will be responsible for the cost of the supplemental tuition for the term of your study abroad program, not for the terms of your UC campus. Let me explain. So if you are studying abroad for a fall semester, you will pay the fall semester non-resident supplemental tuition that UCAP has dictated, which is approximately for the 23-24 academic year, it's approximately 14,000 and something, right? So you're paying for that and not the quarter, even though UCLA runs on a quarter system. Okay, so it aligns with the structure of the UCAP program. Now, this route could be more expensive for out-of-state students, and I'll show you a graph explaining exactly how. Now, by contrast, if you are participating in a fall quarter UCAP program, which again are the minority, but there are a handful of those, you will pay the fall quarter non-resident supplemental tuition as you are now, but it will be the UCEAP rate. Okay, which is pretty close, but it will be the UCEAP rate because those UCAP program tuition and fees are replacing your UCLA tuition and fees. So here's an example. Let's look at some numbers. So there happens to be a program in the UK called London's Calling, which has a quarter and a semester option. Not all programs are like this, but this happens to be one of them. So I thought it would be a good one to compare. So the program tuition and fees for fall quarter for this UCAP program are $18,190. The non-resident supplemental tuition for the quarter is $9,918 for UCEAP. So a fall quarter abroad with UCEAP will cost an out-of-state student $28,108. Now let's look at the fall semester for London's Calling. So program tuition and fees are $24,385, and non-resident supplemental tuition is $14,877, which brings an out-of-state student to $39,262. So that's a big difference, right? And I just want to point out that the difference between a semester and a quarter program is that you are abroad longer, so more housing costs, more daily costs, right? Like groceries, food, that kind of thing, transportation. And you are also getting more units. So it's not just blowing up the cost for no reason. You are getting more out of that program, right? But you are paying for that. Now let's compare to a UCLA quarter. So at UCLA, program tuition and fees for one quarter are $12,839. And then the non-resident supplemental tuition is $10,858. So the quarter is $23,697. Okay. So this is for the 23-24 academic school year. So as you can see for this one, for an out-of-state student, studying abroad for a fall semester can mean $10K plus of additional costs. Okay, versus a fall quarter abroad, which will be closer. Now, in some cases, this can be higher or this can be less. Location matters. UK, more expensive than Los Angeles, okay? London in specific. London, more expensive than LA. Plus, you're looking at flight costs and which you may still have as an out-of-state student, right? It's not exactly outlined in the budget, but you have an international flight to account for, more startup costs, right? So that's why it's more expensive. But I can tell you that there are programs in other countries that cost the same, if not less, than a UCLA quarter, because of cost of living and other factors. All right, so let's look at spring. So we talked about fall and how, just to recap, a fall semester abroad could be very costly for an out-of-state student. Let's look at options in the spring. So if you study abroad on a spring semester program, you will pay the spring semester non-resident supplemental tuition, not 2 quarters. So this route can save out-of-state students thousands of dollars, and I'll show you an example. Because you're only paying the non-resident supplemental tuition once, which if you remember is about $14,000, whereas each quarter is 9,900 and something dollars, right? So 14 versus 9,000 times 2, right? Big savings. Now, I want to mention there are some winter and spring quarter programs. There are a handful. Most programs in the spring will be spring semester, but there are some winter and spring quarter programs. And if you participate as an out-of-state student on a winter and or spring quarter program, you will pay the quarter non-resident supplemental tuition as you are now at UCLA. It will be the UCAP rate, however. So let's see some numbers. Again, I like to show you some actual examples. So let's say you do this winter quarter program. It's called Art, Food, and Society in Italy. Program tuition and fees are $14,190, and non-resident supplemental tuition is $9,918. So that's a total of $24,108. Okay, for winter quarter abroad, meaning you go abroad winter quarter, you come back spring quarter. Let's say you're a psych student. This is a very popular program. So is Art, Food, and Society, but I advise for the Psychology and Neuroscience Netherlands, so I happen to know that it is a popular program and it's limited capacity, or has been historically. Check our deadlines page to see what is happening with this program now. So spring quarter, Psychology Neuroscience in the Netherlands, program tuition and fees are $13,890, and the non-resident supplemental tuition is $9,918. So the total will be $23,808. So again, you will be at UCLA for fall, winter, and then spring you'll go abroad. How does this compare to UCLA quarter? You will see, again, we saw these numbers, right, previously, 12,839 for program tuition and fees, and then the non-resident supplemental tuition per quarter is 10,858. So that brings you to $23,697. So if you look at the bottom, it's pretty close, right? So studying abroad, winter quarter or spring quarter for many of these programs will be the same. It'll cost the same as staying at UCLA for 1 quarter. Now, I did say there's a potential to save thousands of dollars. So what is it? If I had a drum roll, I would have done it now. So that is when you participate in a UCAP spring semester study abroad program. So if you go abroad for spring semester, which means you are away from UCLA for the winter and spring quarters, there is potential to save a lot of money. I'm going to give you an example. University of Oslo, okay, in Norway. The program tuition and fees for the spring semester are $19,185. The non-resident supplemental tuition is $14,877 per semester, right? It's assessed per semester when going through UCEAP. So that brings you to a total of $34,062. Now let's look at the alternative of spending UCLA, the winter and spring quarters at UCLA, which is the norm. So program tuition and fees for both quarters come out to $25,678. Non-resident supplemental tuition for both quarters comes out to $21,716. So that amounts to $47,394. This is what you're paying, right, as an out-of-state student. That is more than $10,000. It's more than $13,000 more expensive than spending a spring semester at Oslo. Okay. And you can fill in the blank with University of Oslo with something else, University of Sydney. For many of these spring semester programs, you are saving thousands of dollars by going abroad during a spring semester as an out-of-state student because of the non-resident supplemental tuition. That's only assessed once. Okay. So these are estimates from the 23-24 academic school year. Always make sure when you are planning to go abroad that you are looking at the latest estimates to figure exactly what those savings could look like for you. But I'll tell you that out-of-state students will often do this, a spring semester program or a winter and spring quarter program to save money, or a fall quarter program, right? The quarter only. But the fall semester option tends to be the most expensive. So we do have a resource sheet available. You can email our office and we will send it to you. It goes over what I just shared in a more succinct way. So it's a good supplement to this presentation. No pun intended. And you will see here the reminder about summer IEO programs. They don't have any non-resident supplemental tuition. And so I've been talking, for the last few minutes about academic year, but again, keep in mind that during the summer, there is no non-resident supplemental tuition. So that is a good advantage for out-of-state students. You're paying the same as an in-state student. Now, during the year, travel study, global internship program are not available. They only run the summer. There are a lot of programs, over 100 and goodness, over 100 UCEAP programs during the year. And that non-resident supplemental tuition is applicable during that time. And through this resource sheet, we also remind you how much it is per quarter for UCAP, how much it is for semester, and how much it is for the year. Okay, I didn't show you a year program, but you can do what I just did. Do the math, go on the cost calculator of a UCAP program for the year and compare it to UCLA. You'll find it almost ends up being the same. Of course, depending on the location, it might be less or it might be more. And we provide examples of some UCEAP programs down here. Some popular ones like ICU in Japan, which has quarter options, and then a spring semester abroad in Sydney. All right, so this is a big investment, right? Like anything else with higher ed, you are investing in yourself. So how can you fund this? So financial aid is available. So if you are eligible for financial aid at UCLA, you can continue to use those funds towards study abroad. You will receive a financial aid package from the financial aid office here at UCLA for your time. Because again, you are still considered a UCLA student while you're abroad. So you're still eligible to receive financial aid, federal financial aid. So any grants, any scholarships that you receive, you can use them. Now, I know that at UCLA, even that may not be enough, right? There might be a gap there, and you need to take out loans or rely on family or work, right, for that extra funding. Please know that there are scholarships available. There are scholarships that you can apply for that are specific to study abroad. And a lot of times students are not applying because they think, why would I earn this? Or it's too much work. I understand you have a lot on your plate, but I want to tell you, you have a wonderful resource here at UCLA, the UCLA Scholarship Resource Center. They will sit with you and explain scholarship criteria to you. They will help you with your personal statement. And we have some collaborations with them upcoming where we're going to help with that. There are also, from time to time, some cross-campus collaborations. For example, this year we are working with UCR to create a webinar series where we can help you with personal statements. So always look at the Scholarship Resource Center and always come to our page too, the UCLA IO Scholarships page. We have scholarships for all of our programs, and we also provide links to national scholarships like Gilman, like Boren, like Fund for Education Abroad, to name a few. So please go ahead and visit us on our scholarships page. All right, so I hope you have been asking all your questions throughout. Hope you have not been shy. If there is anything left, please enter it now in the last few minutes before we log off. So I really encourage you to join our newsletter. We send out announcements of events. This week, Global Learning Opportunities Week is our biggest study abroad fair type of event, and we have an in-person portion too. You don't want to miss out on those kinds of things for the next quarters because we always have something going on. So join our newsletter. You will get announcements about deadlines, things like that, and events. You can scan the QR code there. We are also on social media. So if you follow us on social media, you can see photos of students like you who have studied abroad. They share what their time was like abroad. So that could give you the little push you need or the boost of confidence to know that you can do it too, to see yourself as a study abroad participant. So follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, which is now called something else, right? X. We are online, so follow us on social media. We also have virtual drop-in advising. If you look at this section right here, on the top right, we have virtual advising, we have drop-in advising for our schedule. Please go to this page, ieo.ucla.edu/contact, and you can schedule a one-on-one appointment if you know where you want to go, what you want to study specifically. If you're not there yet, and that is okay because that's what we're here for, you can go into general drop-in advising and we'll go from there. We'll get to know you and try to find a good fit for you. And we are on campus. So we are in Murphy Hall, 1332 Murphy Hall. It's on the first floor at the end of the hall. We are the UCLA Study Abroad Office, also known as the UCLA International Education Office. For our office hours, visit our website so that you know when we're open. We update that regularly. You can also give us a call. Our phone number is there. And you can send us an email to the general inbox. So we have a lot of ways for you to reach us. So we really hope that you reach out to us. So thank you for your attention. You have been wonderful. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you chose UCLA and that you went far from home. That tells me you have what it takes to take another leap and go abroad. So I really hope that you take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that is study abroad. Thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Happy Glow Week.